Welcome to Matrix Live Season 2, Episode 19. We're getting to the end of the season already. Something needs to happen.
Yeah, we need to start building up dramatic tension towards a cliffhanger at the end of some
Sometime,
flavor.
I don't know, 1.0, that's too far away maybe.
Yeah, or 0.1, we're not allowed to say 1.0. Stable, out of beta, something, but yeah, I think getting that for episode 24 might be slightly pushing on that. 5 weeks? Yeah, I think that
Might
would
be
be
a bit
quite
short.
impressive.
Yeah.
We're a bit dead, sorry. It's been a long week, and even though we skipped the episode last week. Yeah, bit knackered, really. But on the plus side, you can get distracted by people moving desks around behind us. um, what
Yeah.
should we talk about?
Overall community stuff.
Oh yeah, this week in Matrix, sort of highlights. I guess the obvious thing to talk about would be the Fractal Hackfest in Strasbourg, which is why is that how you say Strasbourg?
Strasbourg.
Oh, you don't pronounce the G.
Mm,
Oh, nobody ever told me that.
now
Do the
you know.
Germans pronounce the G?
I think so.
Okay, well, in which case I'm going to side. Anyway,
It's in France, it's not in Germany.
I know. Very good point. Um, Fractal Hackfest in Strasbourg was really good fun. I went there for Thursday, Friday last week, which is why we missed out on an episode of Matrix Live last week. And it was very intense, going and really deep diving into the entirety of Matrix, and really interesting to see a good sort of UX focused bunch of hackers try to work out how you would make a really good native Matrix client. And a lot of the discussion was all around splitting Fractal as it is today into the barbecue flavor, which is like a small one-to-one and small family and friends group sort of messaging thing, versus a bit like iMessage or WhatsApp or even Telegram, versus Banquets, which is the big public chat room, IRC like, possibly Slack or Discord like experiences, or like Riot today, honestly. Lots of discussion about how you would implement end-to-end in that world, how you would implement, end-to-end encryption in that world, how you would implement VoIP, and the idea that you could end up with multiple front ends, one as the barbecue app, one as the banquet app, and one for, say, placing calls if you were on a phone, like for Purism Librem 5. And a lot of folks at the event were Purism employees interested in seeing whether Fractal can be used for the Librem 5. Lots of discussion about splitting Fractal into front ends which all talk to the same back end, which then becomes a matrix daemon, which would run on your OS and basically multiplex all of these different apps, provide a really simple IPC API that you can use to send and receive messages. And you offload all the crypto and the VoIP to the daemon, and then the daemon also has an always-on connection to the server, which is effectively used for push. And before you know it, you've completely re-architected the entire concept of Matrix on the desktop. Lots of discussion also about UX. It was fun. It was really interesting food for thought. Big debate that we need to argue about on whether rooms should be immutable or not. Whether it's a mess that we can today convert direct messages into private group chats and convert those in turn into public rooms. Seemed like a good idea at the time, and I personally still quite like it. I think
Yeah.
you do too.
Yeah, me too. But general feedback from everyone we've been working with, in terms of customers or people building on Matrix or whoever, is that it's confusing. So yeah, we need to think about that.
Basically, the alternative is that you would go and have the ability to copy events from one room to another, or even clone a room. And so, rather than converting the type of the existing room, instead you'd somehow select the bunch of history that you want to transport into a new conversation, and then create a room with that history intact. And it's a holy war in the team, honestly, with I think us going for the current behaviour and basically everybody else in the team pushing against it, and now with the wider community also pushing against it. Now would be a great time for people to weigh in, and if you have strong thoughts on whether room sort of flavour should be immutable and separate, then please let us know.
Yeah, I think that if you add the idea of cloning or selecting the history and copying it from one place to another to not start from scratch every time, it might be a good compromise. But let's see. Let's
I don't know.
not debate it now.
Well, I don't know. If you like, I know something icky about duplicating the history, let alone physically copying it between rooms. Like you go and search your search results and you get it in duplicate and all this sort of thing.
Yeah, true. But then it's also quite complicated for people to grasp the idea, and we keep saying that. So we don't have much time. Let's take it another time.
Okay. Other stuff in this week in Matrix. Brendan's blog post, Enter the Matrix. I can't believe no one had used that before as a blog post name. Massive brain dump on all things Matrix. Well done, Brendan, for putting this all down on paper. It's better than anything we've written so far, and did hilariously well on things like Hacker News as people enthused about it. Oh, that's exciting. Got a monitoring alert coming in. That probably means that the Matrix home server is down. Sorry, matrix.org users. And hopefully somebody, in fact. So, is Eric still there?
Yeah, he's still
okay, brilliant. Eric can fix
You can
that.
see live Eric going and fixing the.
At least I hope so. What were we just saying? Yes, Brendan blog post. Thanks, Brendan. Fun to see feedback on Hacker News, etc. And GSOC begin.
Yep.
So not much in the way of updates yet, but lots of interesting conversations happening with the three students. Tell us about Riot, Andy.
So big news this week, Riot 0.15 is out with stickers that have been yet another big difficult birth, but everything is out and working across the different apps. It's only mobile where we cannot send them yet. But yeah, that's good. And there is an Electron 2.0 version, which we're not. Tell me about Electron, because I didn't follow fully what happened there.
So lots of drama with Electron recently being insecure that people don't bother to upgrade their Electron versions. It ships with an old version of Chrome or Chromium technically, and you get vulnerabilities there which have been fixed in the rest of the ecosystem. There's been doubly compounded with poor old Signal, who've had some really embarrassing cross-site scripting vulnerabilities in their desktop app, which combined with the vulnerabilities in Electron mean that you can own people's computers by sending them malicious Signal messages. Obviously, they've been running around trying to fix that, but one of the good news is that the Riot 15 bumps us to Electron 2.0.1, which was released yesterday. So we're literally using the very, very latest we can possibly get there, which amounts to Chrome 61, which is relatively recent. And then also, touch wood, we don't have any XSS vulnerabilities in Riot Web anyway. So it's all basically good hygiene and housekeeping, and all we're trying to say is that even though we use Electron, we're trying to make sure it doesn't suck to the max.
And there have been speed up on end-to-end encryption on Firefox, right?
Yep, factor of 20 or so faster now.
Okay, quite nice. Should be noticeable. Tell us what you think. And lots of polishing. We're working full steam on GDPR now with cookie warning, which has happened on develop and other stuff. We're missing the consent flow and the deactivation erasure flows, which are coming up soon. There is also a blitz to mop up the P1 priority bugs on Riot Web. And someone I won't mention has gone on an accidental mission to replace draft with a slate to make the rich text editor more robust.
Which is great, even if I say so myself, in terms of having a rich text editor that actually works.
Yes, it does. And the next steps are enabling Jitsi everywhere. Who's going to do that again?
Dave.
Okay,
he's almost done it, but it just keeps on getting repeatedly interrupted.
The end-to-end cross-signing eventually, and lazy loading of members, which should again accelerate quite a lot the app. So, yay. On the mobile side, sticker sending is almost done. It's progressing on both platforms. GDPR started as well. And there have been notification bug on F-Droid and Android 8, They released a fix this week, hotfix, which was Wednesday, so only for F-Droid users, but yeah, it was quite annoying. We got a lot of feedback on that. So upgrade, it's out now.
A really unexpected side effect of the sticker work is that we were about to launch them yesterday and discovered that they were excruciatingly slow. And did a quick look to see why the sticker integration manager was quite so slow, and discovered that it was sharing a database with the main matrix.org home server, which was a bit worrying, like it was taking 2 seconds to do completely basic queries on the database. And we've moved it to a dedicated database, at which point it's unbelievably snappy. So if you use integrations now, you'll discover they hopefully appear instantaneously. Great news for stickers, but it also kind of highlights that the database for the matrix.org home server is also having problems. And whilst we've been completely fixating on making Synapse go faster, we might not have noticed that the database itself has ground to a halt and we've run out of I/O. So there's a whole new battlefront that we can do to speed up Synapse there. And the good news on the minus side, nightmare.
Tell us more while you're there. Back inside, what happens?
Synapse. 0.29 came out yesterday/today. This is very much a maintenance release. Lots of the Python 3 work from Notifile continues to land. I don't think there's really any particular highlights beyond that other than just fixing things, fixing it against the new Twisted release, and generally improving. Lots of new feature work, though, is happening at the moment, separate to that release. Specifically, the PRs are landing for chunks and DAGs. This is the work that Eric has done for the long-term solution to the depth abuse issue that's still impacting Matrix Dev and Matrix HQ. Briefly, this is modeling your room as a set of chunks of DAG rather than as one great big DAG which has holes in it if you have bits of disconnected stuff. And it means that we will also be able to handle extremities better because you have fewer extremities, but you only look at the ones in the active piece of DAG, chunk of DAG. It's a fairly major change, but it's currently being reviewed and landing, and it's pretty exciting. After which, we'll be getting back to the CPU and delta state resolution. Parallel to that, VDH has been working away on lots and lots of GDPR stuff. There's a link, if you look at This Week in Matrix, to the Trello-style GitHub projects page of all the issues flying around there. The big news, though, is that it adds the whole concept of a server notices room, which you can have every user on your home server magically invited to so that the server admin can send important information. The obvious thing they're going to be sending is, hey you, please can you consent to the privacy policy, but it could also be used for, hey you, the server's just about to go down, or new message of the day, or whatever terms and conditions, and basically that sort of usage, which is particularly exciting because it's the first ever Synapse bug. One. I found it like the day after we launched Matrix and saying, where's my message of the day? Even my 1994 vintage IRC server has a message of the day. Here we are, 4 years later.
Eventually fixing it.
Eventually, yeah.
We might want to talk about how this is going to be called UXWise.
Well, in practice, on any old Matrix client, you're going to get this room pop up saying server notices.
But that's my thing. Server notices. I saw the demo the other day, and I was like, what?
Well, if you give me a better name than server notices.
That's what I was saying. Let's try to think about something which makes more sense for people who are not used to IRC or
true.
know what a server is.
On Riot, we can do better probably. On Riot, I don't think we'll be even showing it as a message. It will be a pop-up saying, hey, please consent to the privacy policy for GDPR.
Anyway.
Yeah, indeed. Spec stuff. Masses of work on the spec this last week and the week before. Thank you very much to Ben, who's driven all of this to put together the proposals page, which is an index of all the spec proposals, now formally editorialized and librarialized. I'm not doing anything naughty back there, am I?
No,
that'd be really embarrassing.
They're just drinking beer.
They're drinking beer and moving desks around. It's a very productive Friday afternoon. Specs, yep. Go check it out. Hopefully it's useful. It's also got some kind of proto-governance stuff in there. It's not meant to be a full-blown governance thing, but hopefully enough to get by until we ship a 1.0 and can talk more about that. Dendrite, pretty much nothing. But we do have Fresh Blood on the horizon. Tell us about Fresh Blood, Andy.
Fresh Blood. So we have actually 2 new starters Monday who are Anoa as an intern. So yeah, obviously working on Dendrite, and Amber joining us more on the Synapse side.
Yep. So we're doubling the size of the back end team tomorrow or next working day. Woo.
And then continuing growing it 1 week later with Hubert. Yeah, back in general, a lot of things on the horizon.
Helping on spec, particularly.
End-to-end,
also, crypto, and we've already got a to-do list of about 20 things on it, and it's
we need to pick up stuff.
It's going to be fun.
And then it's Half Short's turn on the 4th of June.
Yeah, so Half Short after is joining us as an intern.
On bridges.
Yep.
Helping out on bridges. And we also had this week Steph joining us in France on the iOS side of things.
Indeed, iOS has been quite starved recently as folks have had to help out on Android, so having a fully dedicated iOS guru back in the camp is good news for, well, you and me, who I think are probably the only iOS users out there, but hey, it's good news for us.
So yeah, lots of changes there, and it's good to see fresh air.
Yeah, hopefully we'll also have enough person, although we're trying to sort out the paperwork at the moment. I mean, it's probably worth noting that I think there's 6 people there, and 3 of them are from the community, and 3 of them aren't from the existing Matrix community, although hopefully we'll convert them into acolytes along the way. I mean, this is kind of a deliberate choice to try to hire a mix of folks from across the spectrum. Part of that is to ensure diversity, honestly. We don't want a whole bunch of Matrix geeks who have completely drunk the Kool-Aid and got used to all the mistakes we've made already. It's much better to be challenged and have new viewpoints from people from outside. Someone like Amber, who is casually used Matrix a bit, but is professionally focused on Twisted and Python, obviously can have an awful lot to give to Synapse development and back-end development, but also, heaven forbid, a fresh perspective rather than somebody who's been following the project from day one. But then again, it's also really great to have people like Hubert, who have been following the project since day one and already sort of experts in what it looks like and can help on very domain-specific things like the spec.
Yeah, super rapid ramp-up and integration, so that's good as well. So yeah, I think that's really a good mix we ended up getting there.
It's also an idea to try to consciously avoid cannibalizing the community, because there are a lot of folks out there who are building projects, potentially commercial projects, on top of Matrix, and if Matrix is successful and their projects are successful, then it's basically seeding the entire ecosystem and community, trying to get as much heterogeneity and decentralization really in the sort of Matrix industry as a whole. And if we just go and hire everybody who's working on a commercial server or commercial integrations manager or whatever, then we kind of risk, well, first of all, we want people on the core team to be focusing just on the core team, on the core product, I should say, the core protocol, the core standard, for everybody's benefit. And you can end up with a bit of a conflict if folks are got their sort of side project, which it could end up conflicting with that. Obviously, it's a bit hypocritical to say that because we have Riot and the integration stuff that we're doing too. But the point there is in the longer term to set up Matrix as a separate foundation. The idea now is to do that once we've got out of beta, and then that would be a much better point where the Matrix Foundation can go and get support from the entire ecosystem, and we can basically eliminate that conflict. But hopefully that made some sense. I don't know, did it make any sense?
To me, yes, but I'm a bit biased. Don't tell anyone.
Anything else?
I think that's about it.
Even Calix is dead.
Yeah.
Calix? Manchester, no, he's far too asleep. He's sitting down there.
Tu viens?
I don't think he's going to come. Or perhaps he is. It's going to go horribly wrong. He's going to launch himself at you.
No.
There we go. Well, have a good weekend, everyone, and thank you for flying Matrix, and see you with a much expanded core team on Monday.
Indeed.
Or
Have a good weekend.
not on Monday.
Monday,
Be a bit
Wednesday,
weird. Friday, whenever it is. See you,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.